Revelation 3972. From the 10th of February 1947. The Battle of Light with Darkness. In the spiritual world, too, the battle of light with darkness rages to an increased degree before the end of this earth, for Satan still seeks to win over the souls there who are no longer able to resist him. He seeks to kindle earthly desires in them and thereby cause them torment in order to determine them to ever greater rebellion against God and thus increase their distance from Him. But the beings of light are also at work and, in their great love for the unredeemed, help them so that they are not defenseless against the attacks of the enemy. And time and again love fights against hatred, also in the spiritual kingdom. It comes to the aid of the fallen and often stands protectively between the powerless souls and their attacker. And this battle, too, will come to an end on the day of judgment. In the spiritual kingdom, too, a time of peace will replace the time of battle before, for there, too, a separation of spirits will take place. In that which is completely distant from God will likewise be banished anew for the purpose of the former redemption. It is an extraordinary grace that the spiritual which is opposed to God is once again given the opportunity to develop upwards, even if it is subject to the law of compulsion. It is a grace in so far as the will of the fallen spiritual substance is bound again so that it can no longer descend further from God. Thus Satan's power over this spiritual substance is also taken away from it, even though it is in bondage to him. God himself takes the spiritual substance into his school again, which inevitably earns it an increased degree of maturity again, even if it takes an exceedingly long time, which finally also secures it free will. There will therefore be a time of peace and tranquility after the last judgment on this earth, where the beings of light will be active on earth as well as in the beyond on their own, where they can spread light because they will not meet with resistance. Where even in the spiritual kingdom the imperfect is willing to accept their instructions, where people on earth will also have constant contact with the inhabitants of the spiritual kingdom and direct instruction and spiritual gifts are nothing extraordinary, because the high degree of maturity of their souls also allow for extraordinary activity of the spiritual beings without coercion being exerted on those souls as a result. For Satan has lost his power for a long time. He can no longer harass people on earth who have proven their affiliation to God in the last battle on the old earth. And also the spiritual in the beyond has been withdrawn from his power, for what was in bondage to him has been banished in the new creation, and the still weak but willing souls have been wrested from his power through the spiritual that is full of light. And there is now only an upward development in the spiritual kingdom, no more backsliding. And that is as long as on earth people are in intimate connection with God and thus also enter the kingdom of light when they depart from earth. Only when the intimacy of this connection diminishes, when people will begin to place matter next to God again, will they thereby loosen Satan's fetters, they themselves give him freedom, and thus they deliver themselves up to his power again. Then the battle between light and darkness will also begin again in the spiritual kingdom, for then his influence will also be greater again on the souls of those who have departed from earth, whom he will try to win over again with cunning and force. Light and darkness will constantly be in battle, but the light will always be victorious in the end. And woe to the spiritual which has sunk so far into the depths, into darkness, that it has to expect a new banishment and solid matter. Its ascent is an endless chain of suffering and torment, and yet it is an ascent, because in this phase of development the Prince of Darkness no longer has any influence on the spiritual being, because it is only subject to the divine law of compulsion, and God's will always and forever promote the spiritual being's ascent until, in the final stage, the being can decide for itself whether it chooses God or his adversary as its Lord. And only when all beings acknowledge God as their sole Lord will the battle of light against darkness come to an end, and it will be a state of eternal peace. Amen.